Welcome to today's show. Enterprise University is thrilled that you are here. Today's journey into the world of AI will be hosted by futurist Jim Carroll on the topic of artificial intelligence. Jim believes that the acceleration of AI is not just about the technology. It's about the promise and the peril, the opportunity and the challenge, the disruptive impact and the strategy. It's about leadership. Jim will help you understand how to cut through the hype about AI and the practical way that you might be able to take advantage of it today. He will also help you understand what he calls the AI megatrends, the deep, longer-term transformative trends that are already and will continue to reshape entire industries. We are joined today by Brianna. She's ready, with a series of questions to find out how Jim might align the rapid emergence of new AI technologies to your business. Brianna, over to you.
Hi, Jim. I'm Brianna. I'm going to guide you through some of the insight that you are going to share today with the folks at this wonderful Enterprise University event being held today. Is that okay?
By all means, I'm ready to go.
So let's talk about the agenda for today. What are you going to cover and why?
I'm going to talk about what I call, start out with what I call the era of acceleration. I mean, look, I've been on stage for 30 years, and what I describe to audiences is that we are seeing dramatic, rapid change. And I'm going to put that in perspective a little bit before I even talk about AI. Then I'm going to spend a little bit of time breaking down today's AI story. How can you cut through what you're seeing in the media, in the news? We'll take a look at ChatGPT and other tools. I'm going to dare to go online, live in real time, hope it all works, and show you some of the things I'm using, certainly some of the things that you're experimenting with, and give you a little bit of insight into what I think we can do with these tools and how we can approach them. Most importantly, I'm going to have a segment on what I call the AI megatrends, because I think it's important to understand AI is not just ChatGPT. It's so much bigger than that. It's been with us for so long. It's having a profound impact on absolutely everything we do. And we'll talk a little bit about how you might bring it into your organization, give you a few action steps for going forward. But a lot of what we're going to cover is what I call the AI megatrends and what we need to do to align to this dramatically faster future.
Oh, I almost forgot. Before we get going, I was supposed to remind everyone to send in your questions as we go. Jim plans on stopping every 5 minutes or so to take some questions and do some polling of everyone here today. We know you have a lot of questions, so make sure to send them in.
Yeah, Brianna, that's a good point to raise. I mean, make sure you send your questions in. Actually, I'm going to talk for about 10 minutes here at the start with the era of acceleration. But in the background, you can send in your questions. We're going to do a text message poll as we go to see what you're thinking about AI. But first, let's, sort of set the stage for what's going on.
So let's start here. I'm an AI avatar, or let's just say I'm a robot, generated by a sophisticated artificial intelligence technology system. It seems kind of appropriate, since I understand you want to start out talking about the promise and peril of artificial intelligence by telling a little story that somehow involves a rather famous robot, Rosie, from the Jetsons. And you want to set the stage for this by sharing 4 key observations that you have about the future.
Yeah, I want to bring people into my world. I want you to understand I live in a world in which, change is happening faster than ever before, and we need to prepare for new realities. And that's why when it comes to AI, I've been focused on this topic with a whole range of organizations. It's the topic of 2023, where I'm sharing my insight with a tremendous number of different organizations, including from this virtual broadcast studio. When it comes to the acceleration of the future, the faster future, I always like to start out with a lot of key statistics. The very first, 65% of kids who are in preschool today will work in a job or career that does not yet exist. That's an example of the fast-paced change that we find ourselves in the midst of right now. Second observation I always like to share is if you are taking any type of degree today based on science, so agriculture, architecture, engineering, anything having to do with healthcare or technology, we're in a situation which half the knowledge that you get in your very first year of a university or college program half of that knowledge is obsolete or revised by the time you graduate. Third observation, we're in the era of what I call instant obsolescence. Think about the car today. You drive it off the parking lot. Cars are essentially becoming big batteries on wheels with a lot of computer gear. Look at a Tesla. And cars are becoming obsolete faster than ever before. We live in the world of instant obsolescence where we're replacing our cell phones, our iPhones every 18 months. And the same thing is happening with all the other technology in our life. This is happening in the context of the collapse of attention spans, in that we have no attention span left. It is said if a young individual goes onto an automotive showroom where they're buying insurance, they expect to be able to go onto their mobile device and apply for that policy or buy the car, get a loan and get approval in 45 seconds or less. They have no attention span. And all of these trends lead to a world in which I talk about the era of acceleration. We are in a world of faster change. Change is coming at us faster than ever before. And I've always pointed out that when it comes to the future, really what matters now is the future belongs to those who are fast. And this is the type of situation where I found myself with NASA a number of years ago. They were having a leadership meeting, top leadership team. They asked me to come in and talk about the future of space. And, it's going to be a room full of astronauts, really serious people, literally rocket engineers, people who are building spacecraft to go to the stars. And I thought, I'm going to talk about the future of space. What the heck can I talk about? And I thought I would talk about George Jetson. Why not? The Jetsons, George worked at Spacely Sprockets. But what I was pointing out was this TV show which appeared in 1962, showing the world what it looked like in the year 2062, 100 years later. All the stuff in the Jetsons is here today. They had drones, they have Apple Watches in the show, they have iPads, they have tablet devices, they have Amazon Echo, Google Home devices, they have online shopping, they have flat screen TVs. And what I was pointing out to NASA, my message for you, is we thought the future was far away. It's actually coming at us with greater speed, greater intensity. It's this era of acceleration. And, I'm in with NASA talking to a bunch of astronauts. Look, I thought to myself, I got to talk about Spock. I got to go in and talk about Spock. So I put up this picture of Spock. Spock in this episode is holding in his hands a medical tricorder, a fantastic concept from the 23rd century, a little device he could hold next to the head of a human or an alien and get an instant readout of their physiological condition. Imagine if we have medical tricorders in our life. Well, when I was with NASA, I pointed out that there was something, an X Prize Foundation award for what was called the Tricorder X Prize, where the global scientific community was being challenged to develop the medical tricorder of the 23rd century. And a team at NASA actually developed one called the Xanadu Scout. I'm holding it here in my hands. I can hold this little device in my head and it will do a variety of physiological measurements, including doing an EKG of my heart. So we live in an era of absolute magic. The era of acceleration is upon us.
Jim, that's a lot of fast change. Whoa! But what about AI? Why has it suddenly become so important and seemingly everywhere in 2023?
It's found right in this chart. Look, AI has been around us for a long time, and it's important to realize it's already all around you. But what has happened in the last several years is the research in it, the studies in it, the computer code around it, the community around it, it has literally exponentiated. I mean, this one graph, this one chart says it all. All of a sudden, in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, it all came together. And it's sort of found in this sort of geeky observation here, where they're talking about the number of parameters in an AI model. The thing about AI, you don't need to understand how it works. You need to understand the implications, and you need to understand how quickly it is evolving. So they're talking, 10, 20 years ago, these models had 60,000 parameters. 20 years later, ChatGPT had 110 million parameters. GPT-2 went up to 1.75 billion, and GPT-3 had 175 billion, but they're now talking about models that are going to have 10 trillion parameters. I mean, this is literally exponential growth. And this is why this year, it seems to be the year of all AI all the time.
But how do people judge the reality of what is really going on out there with AI? I mean, there seems to be a lot of hype, but also a lot of pretty significant trends that are underway. How should people really think about it?
We're seeing comments such as Bill Gates, the development of AI is as fundamental as the creation of the microprocessor. The personal computer is as important as the internet, the mobile phone. It will change the way people work, learn, travel, get healthcare, and communicate with each other. And this is true. It is changing our future. The challenge is nobody really knows how. And so I'm finding a lot of people are, making the comment, AI is about to change the world. The problem is no one is quite sure how. And the best way to understand what is going on, and I do this with a lot of folks I work with, is you put it in the context of what we call the Gartner hype cycle. And that is that every single new technology which comes to our world, we get the trigger, it arrives, we hit this massive peak of expectations where everybody's excited about it, and we realize it's going to take a lot of work to make it real and have a profound impact, so we all hit the trough of disillusionment. Eventually we figure it out and we hit the slope of enlightenment and eventually the plateau of productivity. Every single technology has gone through this curve. You take electronic commerce, online shopping. We had the trigger, we had the massive peak of expectations with the dot-com years, trough of disillusionment. Everybody realized, this is going to take a lot of work to make it go. People lost faith in it, and then COVID came along and we had the plateau of productivity. And you can take all the different elements of artificial intelligence and put them on the curve, whether it's computer vision or other things, large language models. You can put them on the curve and get an understanding of where are they on the reality in terms of the impact they will have and the real practical role that they might play for us.
So what you are trying to tell us is that AI is not one thing. It is many things. Not only that, but different aspects of AI have already been with us for quite some time, while other aspects of AI are yet to come or are still too early to have real value. Give us a little more context on that in terms of what we are hearing about in the news all the time.
Well, you think about what is going on out there. You're seeing what we call the search engine wars, and that is, ChatGPT versus Bing versus Google, Bard, all these different models coming out. You're seeing a lot of coverage about that, and that's where a lot of the news media is. What you also are seeing is the emergence of a lot of fascinating stuff. So for example, text-to-image generators, Midjourney. A lot of the images that I'm using in this presentation today were generated simply by giving a text command, give me a picture that related to this. So you're seeing a lot of developments in that area. You're seeing a lot of software companies integrate AI into the product. Probably the best example is Photoshop, where they've developed what they call generative fill, and that is you have a photo and you're basically instructing the AI, fill in the rest of the image with things that you think might work for this photo. The big ERP companies, the SAPs, the Salesforce companies of the world, the massive software platforms on which a lot of Fortune 500s, Fortune 1000s build their enterprise platforms, they're integrating AI into all the many different aspects of their server technology. And then you're seeing startup world. Look, I track a site called toptools.com, and when I started tracking them months ago, they had 1,000 tools and they had 2,000 tools and they had 3,000. They finally gave up and it's just more than 10,000 AI tools. And you can find tools for everything here. It's really quite fascinating if you go to this website, and we'll post a link to this later on, and discover some of the tools that are out there where you can do really nifty things. The challenge is there's so many of these services that you can literally be overwhelmed. And I added up the math. Both of them are charging, $5, $10, $15, $20 a month. You'd be spending $190,000 a month to subscribe to all of them. But there's a lot of startup money going into AI. And then there's the AI that's already been around it. Self-driving tractors, self-driving construction equipment, autonomous vehicles. That's been a part of AI for quite some time. What we call digital twin technology, heads-up display technology, fast-moving technologies where we can, for example, envision a construction site using very sophisticated augmented reality, virtual reality software, which is enabled by a lot of artificial intelligence stuff. That's a part of what has been happening. There's what has been happening in the insurance world, where we're using a lot of sophisticated analytical software to analyze policies and assess risk and determine who we're going to insure. I mean, that's been around us for quite some time. I'm actually with a company in Houston, JMI Equity, in a couple of weeks. They've got 60 private software companies, and the discussion is obviously AI. And we're going to be talking about, what can we do within the confines of these very specialized software platforms, which some of you might be using, where we can integrate some aspect of artificial intelligence to make the software more useful, more powerful, solve unique customers' problems. It's everywhere. And if you want to understand what is happening, is found in graphs like this. The number of projects which are underway, software projects where organizations, people are working with software, that is literally exploding in the last several years, combined with the fact that the cost to do the processing, the cost to do the processing of the massive sets of data used by AI, that is literally collapsing. The cost continues to go down, that's moving it forward faster. And also the amount of money coming into the world of AI. There are literally buckets of money coming into artificial intelligence with investment dollars floating in. All of these things mean that you're sitting around in 2023 and it seems like it's all AI all the time, and it most certainly is.
We'll be right back.